Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to NSP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Blur titled Song 2, and if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen. Now it is a 2-minute song. I'm getting back into regular weekly videos outside of the Fiverr and Patreon content and stuff like that. I just want to get back into listening to music, and I figure a good way to start that is to get into some music that has been quite formative for me personally, or at the very least as a music teacher I found I have to listen to this quite a bit. So I figure I may as well share my thoughts on it. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. Instantly a bit quieter than some of the other records I've heard recently. Yeah. I don't even know if this will be allowed to get featured or if it'll go past the copyright stuff, but we'll see.
I got my head checked by a jumbo jet. It wasn't easy, but nothing is. No. When I feel heavy metal, and I feel that I need when I lie and I'm easy all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please I need you.
I mean, it's just so angsty, isn't it?
I got my head down when I was young. It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
I love the use of the additional boost though. Lots of power on that bass part. A raunchy tone to that bass guitar with the distortion on it. It's a shame that they kind of like increase the size of this to make up for the zooming that you're doing, but we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Blur titled Song 2. Now, before we go into it, what do we think? What do we think this track is about? Because this is effectively my analysis of it, I suppose, that I do at the end of these videos. I look forward to having the green screen that I used to have in my older videos. Hopefully when we're able to move to the new house, once all that stuff's sorted, it's going to be good. But I just decided to look at the lyrics. I couldn't really make sense of them during the time listening to it. Apparently, according to Genius, Song 2 is a second single released from Blur's homonymous fifth album. It is a deeply catchy satire of grunge music. It is named Song 2 because it appears as the second track on the album. So I'm just having a look through the lyrics here. Woohoo, when I feel heavy metal and I'm pins and I'm needles. Woohoo, I lie and I'm easy all the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Pleased to meet you. I got my hair done when I was young. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. Okay, I think it's kind of making fun of maybe some like lyrical stylings of how like angsty stuff used to be during the grunge era a little bit. Like, I mean, I think it makes sense. You know, grunge was like a response to the hair metal stuff as I imagine it or understand it. And I think that maybe the Oasis stuff in this part was a response to what was happening within the early 90s grunge movement. You know, I can't make sense of the lyrics. I've been reading through them for the last couple of minutes. I think it's meant to be deliberate juxtapositions between things. At the very least, the line, I got my head checked by a jumbo jet, it wasn't easy, but nothing is basically sort of like insinuating that if this is a satire of grunge, that people who got involved with that got their heads hit by a jumbo jet, and like nothing is easy, and things are difficult, and that's basically their life in this situation. And it's just deliberate contrast with I'm never sure I need you, pleased to meet you, as if almost like it's short-term memory loss. I don't know. Someone in the comments is probably going to check me on it. So maybe let's just go to the parts that are maybe sort of like more easy to understand for me personally. I think that the way that the vocals are kind of irreverently, like, they're almost melancholic in their approach. There's Fry, comfortable in the head and chest voice. They're singing melodies, but they're not necessarily trying to sing them too much. I think it's meant to be sort of like a deliberately kind of like laissez-faire approach, maybe trying to sort of play up the kind of difficulty hitting some of the notes, or trying to sort of demonstrate the angst with some of the lines coming through in a way which is maybe disingenuous as per the parody. I feel like the woohoo, that kind of that's inherently catchy. It's almost designed to be like a catchy grunge song. And there's like this kind of cool response with the woohoo, and then like the extra line there, and then they have the kind of unusual extension of the chorus line there, where they kind of have a different sort of like unusual sort of length of bars there, which is kind of different for the genre. Or rather, sort of like usually you have like groups of 4 bars and 4, but they have like 6 bars, and then they with the woohoo, and then they have the kind of cool responses. So like 6 bars of cool responses, and then they have 4 bars at the end there to kind of lead into the kind of main riff with the basses and drums and stuff. I think it's meant to sort of be Blur. I think this is probably why I won't be reviewing more Blur. I don't think I understand them properly. I think like structurally it makes a lot of sense. The transitions from like the drum part at the start, that you got that kind of drum riff there working across like the toms and snares and it kicks, etc., with an 8th note pattern throughout it. And then you've got like the guitar with strummed 8th and 16th note patterns on the right side, and then you have like the heavy kind of distortion, almost like a lot of the kind of earlier grunge stuff in the 2000s. Deliberate sort of like contrast between the heavier acoustic drums and the bass, like or rather the filtered drums and the bass, should I say, to the kind of like strummed clean guitars or the guitars going into the full bore kind of roar of the bass there with a phenomenal bass tone. And with a really well-rounded riff there that goes between 4 chords. It kind of also works kind of similar to Smells Like Teen Spirit, but in a different kind of like pattern or chord progression or bass line, You got those kind of main chords there. I guess technically 5. There's like a sort of like a chain note in between. But you've got like bar chords and power chords for a bit of power there. We're not trying to interfere too much with what the vocalist is doing on top there. It's more of a kind of like, hey, I can play this bass line and I can adjust kind of like to add a bit of a tail and a bit of spice to the end of the chorus line. And there's like adjustment to the bass parts as well. It explores the fretboard a little bit for some of the tails there to kind of switch things up a little bit, or maybe to kind of climb on top of the tritones or triads present. And there's little slides and bits of flicker and flare as well. And there's like an interesting sort of like unison note going on with the lead guitars in the upper end and like the chorus parts. That is a nice sort of contrast to some of the progressions within the rhythm parts. And like little kind of bass bends of wow, wow, wow. There's fun ideas there. I think also it's nice to have just the vocals and the drums and the clean guitars there and those verse parts there. It's just simply for dynamic range there. I think that's a really strong element of this track. That's done very, very well. I think 2 minutes here, you don't overstay your welcome with the piece. You don't kind of leave thinking, well, what have I done with this? What is life? And the song just kind of abruptly ends after a couple of times of those verses and choruses. They tell the very simple song that they needed to do. They aren't kind of rolling with maybe the extravagance of a 3 or 4 minute piece there. They're simply saying, we said our piece. This was song 2. It's 2 minutes. Let's go. I will also say, I didn't really speak about the vocalist that much. I do appreciate the charisma or the way he acts in certain parts there. He's really kind of hamming it up, I think, unless that's the way it sort of communicates. I've heard other stuff from Blur, though. It is very different. Studio production wise, I think it was pretty fantastic. Honestly, it was kind of the dirtiest, kind of rattiest arrangement I've heard in quite a while. The leveling was fantastic. There's a whole lot of sizzle and heat to the sound of the kind of the choked bass parts there. It kind of roars in the mix. The guitars are nicely panned on the sides there. The drums have this kind of cold, clinical tone to them. Not in a sterilized, produced modern production way, but in a way where it just really seems like it was recorded in a cold room, like in a house, and the set that's present within the piece. It sounds like they're hitting the drums. They don't sound overproduced or overpolished. The vocals are definitely not overproduced. It's basically him sort of singing and screaming to a microphone, and it's great, or talking into the microphone, and it works well alongside the attitude present, within those guitar, bass, and drum parts. It's just fantastic. It was recorded clearly. You can hear everything in the mix. There's no resonant frequencies. If they are, they're deliberate. The dynamic range is appropriate, but it's more of a sort of a layering thing, as a textural thing, as opposed to a literal kind of bringing the volume down thing or automation-wise in the mix. It seems like a pretty raw take. Nice and loud without pump because of bus compression and limited channel, but I will say that I think it was mastered more quietly than maybe a lot of other stuff that is put out now. But I also don't know if it'd be improved by making it louder. I just think it was the beast it was. the attitude it was. Could also be quieter because it's a YouTube upload. I think that version was uploaded 16 years ago, if not mistaken, so they probably would have uploaded it like -12, 10 yearly first or something like that at this point. But ultimately, I think that's effectively my review of this track from an ex named Blur, titled Song 2. I think it was a bit of a dumpster fire, but I'm just getting back into the straddle of talking about tracks, and I feel it's well earned. I want to give a special shout out to the drummer, actually. I think he did a phenomenal job on the kit. I love the fact that he held back on some of those 16-note grooves and had an intense eighth the entire time, how well he sort of like tightly he kept the tempo together. I feel like the drummer was my favorite part of the band. If you like this track, please do go show Blur some love via their various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP reviews. By the way, let me know who you want me to review. If you want me to review a track, I'm going to be doing videos for like people who subscribe to the channel as well, like weekly videos on like Wednesdays or Fridays. I don't know yet, but I'll make a video about it. Anyways, stay cool, Shredders. Spiderhands out.